Britain got 0 points last night. Did you hear about that?
Yes, I did actually see the end of the voting, because we heard that Britain was pas de point, and turned it on to see if it stuck out.
Pas de point.
It's my attempt at saying no points in French.
Oh, is pas the word for no in French?
I mean, I don't speak French, so I had thought that it was null point, but I checked on some translation services and got pas de point.
Oh, I would have expected null.
If I'm wrong, blame Tim Berners-Lee for inventing the internet and misleading me. First up, we have a comment on Reddit from VulcanTrekkie45 about barrier island formation on Google Maps time-lapse. So this is in reference to your video from a little while ago about coastal features.
I mean, literally the last video.
Not the last video.
I think so, yeah.
You've released one since.
Yeah, but like that's like the follow-up on the worst things I don't really class as like proper videos, not like mainline videos. The last mainline video was Coastal Harmony, I think. I'm pretty sure. The Coastal Harmony. Coastal Landforms.
Yeah, because if the last one that you released is Coastal Landforms, then I don't know what it was that I watched in preparation for this recording.
Oh yeah, that counts as the last one. Sorry. That is now finished, that project. In my brain, I'm still like, that project is still ongoing.
Artifexian is now a time travel project.
Yes.
So yeah, in reference to your Coastal Landforms video, Vulcan says, best place to check out the evolution of barrier islands is the Google Maps time-lapse engine. Check out how much the spit south of Chatham, Massachusetts changes over the course of 30 years. So if we find Chatham, Massachusetts on Google Maps, we can zoom in and see the sandbar growing over the time by quite a substantial amount. It's pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, that's why we stuck Vulcan Trekkie's email in the show here. It is insane. There's so much movement, and it's a really good visualization of people working with coastal landforms. So it's a great resource. People should go check it out. 100%.
Definitely.
And the nuts thing is, I think we mentioned in the last show, like people build on barrier islands the whole time because it's like waterfront property. And, you know, when you look at the time lapse, you're kind of like, all your houses are not permanent. Like, all your houses are going. And this is the time lapse runs from 84 to 2020. Like, that's not geological time. It's crazy. And it's just like why we humans insist on living in the worst places is just, it's beyond me. Like,
because it's pretty.
Because it's pretty. I know the reasons, but it's just insane to think that you may have to relocate your house. You know, you go into building a house in the knowledge that it is not permanent and it will be relocated. That's just such a mad thing to me.
No, it's fine. When the sea levels rise, you can just sell your house to Aquaman.
Big Atlantis. It's going to rock up there and take all your real estate. But thank you, Vulcan Trekkie. That's a really cool resource, and the links will be in the show notes. Everyone go check it out.
Definitely.
Now, we got another thing. We got an email here about the Erthani bill. Peacock Moss, which, if that is a real name, that is class. Peacock Moss wants to know a little bit about the Erthani. Specifically, they'd like to know how the Erthani keep track of all their ships.
I hadn't considered that. Thinking about it after getting this email, I'm not sure that they do in any kind of centralized way. The Erthani aren't a centralized nation, and they're not a company the way that the Tamar are. They're more like an ethnicity. And I don't think they were necessarily need to keep a centralized thing of all of their ships for it to be, for this thing of an attack on a ship to be an attack on the entire nation to be true. But in kind of a smaller scale, they schedule journeys in advance, and you know there's kind of communication networks they carry around. to each other and to the places that they visit, the places on shore that they go to. They carry around details of plans and schedules and routes, so that there's a reasonably good idea of where people should be when. And there is a certain amount of a certain ability to communicate across distances in Icairn.
Oh, how?
That's the function of weirds on vessels.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, weirds. We had weirds many, many moons ago. It's been a long time since they cropped up in your writings.
I thought they cropped up in the hunt for the Urselk specimen.
Did they? The ship's weird.
I think so.
Possibly.
Maybe that was in an earlier draft, and the weird didn't make it to the. Looks like it didn't. I'm sure there were weirds in that. Anyway, but yes, that's the function of weirds. In an airship at least. So the Erthani would have something similar. So there'd be a limited capacity to communicate across distances.
Peacock Moss here speculates that the Erthani must have a large number of ships. Comments on that, true or not? And also question from me. Are the Erthani a large group of people? Like, are we looking at a major ethnic majority here? Are they a minority, or what's the sort of breakdown?
They wouldn't be a majority, no. In
substantial minority?
A substantial minority, I guess, would be it. Like in the kind of the continent, or the area of the continent that we've looked at, where the Abeski and kind of related cultures and ethnicities, they would be most dominant, kind of towards the north. There's other ones in kind of the other provinces. Obviously there's the Hoitan and the Transolien that have other ethnicities, but the Erthani are kind of equally present in nearly all of the areas there, and further afield. So they're quite widely spread out. I mean, I can't put a number on how many ships they have, but I mean, yeah, there would probably be a lot.
Okay, cool.
There would probably be a lot.
Yeah, and then what else? Oh yeah, and at the very end, Peacock Moss mentions that we should check out the channel Hello Future Me. I second this. I'm going to stick a link to the show notes to Hello Future Me. Tim Hickson is the guy who creates it, and he has a really good video for like quick and dirty naming languages for maps. And it's really useful and really geared at someone who is beginning the process of coming up with naming languages. So,
neat.
Yeah, well worth the watch. I'll stick that in the show notes. Thank you, Peacock Moss.
Thank you, Peacock Moss,
for sending in the email. What else we got, Bill?
We have an email from Devin Beans.
I think Devin's been on the show before. I remember that surname Beans, Mr. Beans.
And Devin is asking about floating islands. I was wondering how one of you would go about creating a realistic setting that involves floating islands. Islands that somehow float in the gaseous atmosphere of a planet. This could either be a gas giant with some land masses in its outer layers, or it could involve multiple levels of land masses, one at the surface and others floating above. Gas could even influence the terrain, creating seas and rivers that appear to be craters and ditches. Any thoughts on that, Edgar?
So I think we talked a little bit about this way back in the day, but I just thought it would be cool to bring it up again. I can't justify floating islands using science whatsoever. I think the two best scenarios that I find the most intriguing, although they involve a fair bit of hand waving, are the Avatar scenario, where the floating islands are justified because of magnetism. Which obviously doesn't work. But it's kind of, I don't know, past Edgar's disbelief was suspended something serious when watching Avatar, and they were told that these islands are repulsive with respect to the ground, and that made sense. In a suspended disbelief sort of way. So that's one thing you could kind of lean on, although you would be aping Avatar quite a bit there. And the other one is, I mean, it's not really floating islands, but you could maybe have a setting where the narrative of your story is taking place on a world that has been destroyed or in the process of formation. So it's not so much floating islands as like a bunch of floating debris closely orbiting a center of mass. And you can also have all of your like Devin mentions gas floating around the place. That could be a protoplanetary disk type thing. So you can kind of sort of get at it like that. But obviously there's problems there, because I'd be like, if the planet has been destroyed, chances are it's not going to be very habitable. And if the planet is about to be formed, chances are it's not going to be very habitable at all.
Yeah.
But I don't know, depends on how hard and soft your setting is. I think it could be a fun thing to exploit. But so those are the two that I think work. But in terms of strict science, like you're just not. It's like stuff is going to stick together in the ball. That's what's going to happen, and floating islands won't work. And there's no means of having gases thick enough that will create floating rocks. Like, you know, no matter how dense or how thick the gas is, it's rocks are going to fall through it. It's just that's what's going to happen. So yeah, you're going to have to deviate away from science here, Devin, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, my thought was like something like tungsten hexafluoride, which I think is the densest gas under normal conditions.
Tungsten? Oh, sure, yeah, tungsten as in like tungsten lights. Yeah, I was like, tungsten isn't gaseous. I was thinking of titanium.
Well, I mean, they're both metals, but yeah, there's tungsten hexafluoride, which has a density, it's 11 times heavier than air. Also, it's corrosive. That's fun. And there's pumice stones, but like, you know, which float on water, but they're still like significantly denser than tungsten hexafluoride. So I mean, maybe if things were on a gas giant, maybe you could have a thicker nominal gas, but then it's going to be difficult to set stories there. Like you won't have life-friendly or recognizable life-friendly environments.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. Yeah, tungsten hex. That's really interesting. Tungsten hexafluoride and pumice ground. Like, that's a recipe for disaster. The ground just dissolves from underneath you on a near constant basis. But yeah, I just hand wave. Like, this is totally fine. This is one of those times where it's just like, forget the science. Just hand wave. And particularly if there's a good narrative reason for having this, like if it's symbolic of something that you're trying to tell, then just do it. Just do it. Mm-hmm. You really don't need to justify it. It's grand. Devin, thank you for writing in. I hope that helped. It probably didn't, because we just told you it didn't work, but thank you for writing in. So the last email we have comes via Harry, aka Trekkie135. And they wrote in to tell us about their conlang that involves initial consonant mutation, like in Irish and all the other Celtic languages. It's a very long submission, so I'm not going to go through the details of it, if that's okay, Harry. But just to say that what you've done sounds really naturalistic and really cool, and it sparks joy to see people conlanging with Celtic structures in mind, because it's just, obviously, I really enjoy it.
I love initial consonant mutation. I think it's great.
It's dope, and it's so weird. Like, it's so weird. I love that we have this really weird thing around us and a part of our kind of culture. For those who don't know, in Celtic languages, depending on certain grammatical contexts, various words can change their initial consonant. And there's various mechanisms for this and various types. But like, a good example is the word for woman in Irish is ban. So B-E-A-N. And if you put the definite article before woman, you get on van. And so that's ban turns into van. B-E-A-N turns into B-H-E-A-N. And the whole reason why this came about, as far as I can tell, is that way back in like Proto-Celtic, when you had the definite article and a word like woman, there was like an intervocalic consonant cross word boundary, and that caused the consonant to be lenited to become softer. And all of those word boundaries were like messed up with like sound loss, but the sort of the lenited consonant structure stuck. So like in Proto-Celtic, if I remember correctly, the woman is Sinda or Sinda Bena.
Wow.
Thank you. I did a bit of I tried to make a conlang like what Harry has done, and that's why I know that. But yeah, Sinda Bena. So you have an A B A, a cross word boundary there, and then they were like, oh, that's really hard to pronounce, so let's do Sinda Vena. But then Sinda whittled down to the word an, so we had on van, and the thing just stuck. So it's kind of like it's this weird sort of like it's because of a thing that no longer exists. It's just bizarre. It's just bizarre. But anyway, thank you for that, Harry. Thoughts on Harry's email there, Bill?
Harry tells us that they are a student at the University of York studying linguistics and German, which greatly delighted me to see because I, once upon a time, studied studied at the University of York. That's where I did my master's in music. Although, and actually you might not know this, Edgar, I did apply to go there for my undergrad to study linguistics and German.
Get lost, really?
Yeah, it was a place I had in mind, because after school, before I repeated my final year of school, when I did it the first time round, I was kind of thinking of studying linguistics and German, and then I repeated, and in my repeat year decided to study music instead. But yeah. So that was neat to hear from a fellow York student. Say hello to the geese for me, please, Harry.
The waterfowl of York. Do you know what? Okay, so I'm watching a program called The Last Kingdom at the moment.
Yeah, that's about the kind of the Danes and the Saxons in England, right?
Exactly. I'm not going to say too much about it because I'd like to actually talk about it in the green room. But just unrelated to this point, but unrelated to the York thing, I have great crack while watching that program trying to interpret the like old English that they put on screen. So like, for example, there'd be a cut and then you'd be in this town and then on screen the word like Loidis would come up. And then I pause and I'm all like, what can that be in modern English? And then I try and guess the names. And I'm quite good at it. Like Loidis is Leeds. Apparently it's the old name for Leeds. But there was one that I was like, this is crazy. And it's the old word for York. Do you know one of the old words for York?
I mean, in what language are you asking me this?
In the whatever language was spoken in York predominantly around 800 AD.
Jorvik.
Jorvik. No. So in The Last Kingdom they have Airwich.
Which I guess it comes from Jorvik. Yeah,
well,
you see. Yeah.
But I was like, I saw that and was like, I would have been here till the heat death of the universe trying to, form the modern version of that. Because like Loidis, Leeds, London, Airwich, York. It's just like so incongruous.
There's an interesting thing that comes there. So you know the way that witch is often a suffix in English places.
Yeah, it means village, as far as I know.
It can do, but there's a specific thing about it. Let me get this right. So I know this specifically in relation to Droitwich, and places around kind of the West Midlands, that it comes from the Hwicce kingdom, who were kind of in their pre-Anglo-Saxon, I think, in the West Midlands, and it actually comes from salt.
Oh,
so yeah, not obviously the word salt itself, but it's that particle in the names is derived from the fact that the salt trade was a strong kind of economy or a strong industry in that area.
Wow.
So, yeah. So I've been told. I probably have some of the details slightly off there, but it's something like that. Yeah, so the Huiche is the name, not the Wicca, the Huiche.
Oh, interesting. I was going to ask, is that in any way related to the word Wiccan, but obviously not if it's Witcher.
Yeah. So I think so that's just an interesting that it's also resulted in witch, but I think is probably not the same witch as in Ervich for York.
Yeah, because the one I'm looking at the Wikipedia page here, and the witch in York is village, according to Wikipedia, and Wikipedia is never wrong. So yeah. I thought it was really fun. Airwitch, or I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Sorry, folks, but it was just like York. What? How even? It's crazy. Harry, thank you. York is just actually before the thanks. York is a beautiful place. My God.
Yeah, it's great.
Oh my God, York is like stunningly beautiful. I really enjoyed that short visit I had with you up in York. It's it's a great place. I did not enjoy that train ride up to York though from London. That was horrific. It's like I had to take out a small mortgage to get up to York. Trains in England, man. I suppose trains in Ireland as well. They're just shockingly expensive. If I may complain, sorry, I know no one wants to listen to me complain, but I will complain slightly. I once got a train, I think from Vienna to Graz in Austria, and that train cost me €9, right? And that is unheard of in the Greater Scilly Isles. Because, like, you go anywhere in the Greater Scilly Isles on a train, even if it's short distance, and you're rid of an obnoxious amount of money. Like, I think to do, I don't know, a similar journey in Ireland, I think you're looking at maybe 40, 50 euro return, maybe. And
what's the distance?
Graz
to Vienna.
I can't remember. I'll have to Google Maps this.
Like, how long was the journey?
I also can't remember. I slept because I just come off a flight. Hold on. We go. Graz. Now, maybe it could well have like gone up over time because it's been many years. I'd say about a decade since.
Yeah, it's been about 10 years, I'd say.
Graz to Vienna is 200 kilometers. That's by car. Hold on, by train is it doesn't actually give you.
Not going to be massively different.
It's not massively different from like the likes of where I am to Dublin in Ireland, and like you know you're looking at a 40-50 quid train journey, and it's just insane. And the trip up to York was the same thing. Like I'm pretty sure I paid nigh on 3 figures to come up and see you, and I was like, "What is this? This is insane."
Thanks, man.
Oh yeah, no, but sure you're worth it, man. You're worth 3 figures. Not 4, 3 figures.
Not 4.
Low 3, Bill. Come on. But yeah, York is beautiful, and thanks for writing in the email, Harry, and thank you for conlanging Celtic languages. It's
hell yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. More appreciation for the Celtosphere. It's great. So what else we got? I believe that's the end of follow-up.
I think that is all the follow-up done.
So let's go into main topic.
Let's do it.
Shall we start with world building or with vowel harmony?
Your choice.
Oh Jesus, the pressure, Bill. Oh. Let's start, just because it's first in the show notes, let's start with some world building.
Okie doke.
What have you got? Give us a brief synopsis and then launch into it first, Bill. What do you got for us?
I have we have returned to Icairn, and we've returned to the Tamar Company, and once again, this is a letter.
Shocker.
Presenting some new business opportunity.
Oh, okay, cool.
Dear Lilani, have you received the latest round of reports from the Transolien office? The news contained therein brings us both joy. The mining unrest threatened last season has largely been quelled, thanks in no small part to your advice on disrupting the seditious networks formed within the worker population. Allow me to gift you a cask of brandy upon our next meeting, which I pray will be soon. It is with another matter that this letter is concerned, however. I wish to bring to your attention an innovation undertaken these past few seasons, one that has proved unexpectedly successful in Transolien, and suggest to you how we may begin to implement it domestically. As you are aware, in this province, the needs of company security have largely become united with those of domestic order and peace, the company provides in all aspects of life in these remote, hard settlements, and this is no exception. Absent bailiffs and sheriffs, it falls to the company to protect not only our trade and interests, but to ensure safety of our workers and maintain orderly towns. The success of our company security in protecting the camps has been such that the handful of non-company Abeski settlements in Transolien, and even some native towns, have sought contracts with the Transolien office in providing similar services. These arrangements have been mutually satisfactory. The region has reported significantly reduced banditry, safer travel, more peaceful settlements. All the contracts issued last year have been renewed. According to the intelligence of my office, no other companies have pursued such an expansion of security. Before they capitalise on our innovations, I have a suggestion. We should attempt to apply this model, proven successful in distant provinces, in domestic lands. You have no doubt many thoughts in response to this proposal. I am not submitting this to you without significant investment of consideration, and thus will endeavour to tackle your reactions as best I can, given the benefit of my experience in Transolien and my familiarity with the idea. Firstly, you will no doubt protest that these responsibilities are currently the purview of municipal bailiffs and appointed sheriffs, and attempting to replace them would likely be met with significant resistance from these established authorities. I can foresee one strategy to overcome this difficulty. As the needs of the company grow closer to the needs of the municipal authorities, or to the economic prospects of smaller towns, we can represent that it will be more efficient for the company to take care of these civil needs. Further, we can offer the authorities contracts that are cheaper than the current costs of maintaining their own forces, while also offering greater pay to the bailiffs and militia. Established relationships with existing authorities will be of utmost importance in attempting this expansion. Chief Bailiff Baurin in Lansk, for example, may be particularly amenable to such an arrangement, given adequate encouragement. For more remote areas, the free agents that currently service those outlying settlements can easily be hired, or, failing that, undercut by competitive contracts. This strategy is by no means complete, and some resistance is still to be expected, but our difficulties will be greatly lessened. Secondly, the military commission may object to the increased use of force in the domestic provinces, due to the reaction this may provoke from our commercial rivals. This problem is not so easily addressed. There are fewer precedents upon which we can predict outcomes. The clear commercial benefits, both primary and secondary, will be important for convincing the Commission's more conservative minds of the value of this strategy. These are the primary objections, I believe, but I invite you to consider further benefits of this arrangement, beyond the immediate financial returns. The company already has a great wealth of experience in many of the required skills. The records of the company's military and security is exemplary, and held in high public esteem. Further, our scouts are well equipped to deal with many of the more specialised demands of the remote settlements, where bandits and dangerous elements may seek refuge in the hinterlands. Greater security in domestic trade can only benefit all offices of the company. Upon assuming responsibility for those services currently provided by the existing authorities, we can be assured of great returns for many years to come, and at prices under our sole control. Public confidence in existing authorities is never secure. This may be swayed in a favourable direction by our broadsheets. The reputation of the independent agents and bounty hunters is even lower, and the company's vaunted discipline, reliability, and uniformity will stand in stark contrast to those services currently offered. Please give this proposal consideration, and discuss it with our colleagues where you deem prudent. It is my sincere wish to return to Zhikav before the end of the season, where I may both discuss with you this plan and deliver to you that promised keg of brandy. Yours in prosperity, Eritha Tsi Agaran, Commercial Subdirector, Transolien First Depot, Tamar Company.
All right, that was really nicely read. There's like 2 slip-ups there.
Thank you.
Other than that, that was really fluent. That was great. I wish I had your ability to read on the fly.
I gave it one read through there in the break, which helped a little, and I gave it like kind of two read overs for editing just to help the flow.
Yeah, man, but like if it were me, I'd have to memorize the piece in order for it to like flow brilliantly. I read like a 2-year-old. It's ridiculous. So we're back to our old enemy. Capitalism is the enemy of this setting. Fun times. So yeah, talk to me about it some more, and then when you're done, I'll do the usual and give you some of my highlighted points.
So the idea here is that the Tamar Company have stumbled on the idea of privatized policing. They've kind of skipped over the existence of civil policing as we actually understand it, to be honest. That doesn't even quite exist yet. And they have skipped straight to privatization of the police.
Can I interject here? Sorry, real quick.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the things I was going to ask about. I get privatized policing, like that, the corporation provides security. Civil policing is where the government provides security, correct?
Yeah, like kind of what we would see as the norm, yeah.
Right, and then, but what's the system currently in place then? Because they mentioned bailiffs and stuff. Would they not be employees of some sort of central government?
Yeah, but they're not. So they're not police in a kind of a modern sense that we'd understand. Okay. Like in a kind of a Pelian sense, that it would be something a little bit older like that than that, like kind of a more kind of pre-Victorian sort of arrangement where there would be people who would deal with crime, but it's not kind of quite modern policing.
Right, but these people would still be hired by some sort of central authority.
Well, yes. Like in larger towns, in the cities, there would be bailiffs and militias, which would be controlled by the city government, and they would probably have some remit over the surrounding area. Smaller settlements would have appointed sheriffs, and like village councils and things who would deal with things as they came up, deal with problems as they arose.
Neighborhood watch.
Yeah, kind of like that. Community organization.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't really be jobs necessarily. It would kind of vary from place to place. There isn't a single kind of system. And you got to remember the Abeski, they don't have the concept of the state in the same way.
Sure.
So there isn't like a national government that would have things like policing or law enforcement or those kind of concepts as part of their remit, because they don't exist.
And that makes sense why civil policing was kind of skipped over then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good.
Exactly.
Cool.
Because
like
the concept of the state isn't the same.
Yeah, sure. Exactly.
So they kind of invented this idea that they can replace such existing authorities as exist with the company, and that the company will provide this because it is, they can portray it as to the benefit of the cities, and obviously it's to the benefit of the company. And also it is a colonial model that has been re-imported. So they see what works in the areas that they are colonizing, and they bring those skills and apply them domestically.
Yeah, is that weird in terms of like real life? Like, because I have that highlighted, and I kind of think it'd be really odd. Like I was thinking of some sort of colonial entity going around and enforcing these draconian privatized police on others, but then it seems really strange for them to turn around and also do the same to themselves. That seems odd. Does that occur IRL?
But they're not doing it to themselves. They're doing it to other Abeski.
All right, but like, I mean, all right, okay, fair enough. So the idea being that wherever the CEOs of the Tamar company live don't undergo this, correct?
No, it where they live, it is applied there, but it's not going to apply to them.
Okay. So they're fine with it because they're outside of the law, so to speak, right? And that's why they're okay.
Police bat and charge strike breakers. They don't bat and charge shareholders.
Sure.
In real life.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, because I was wondering, like, why on earth would you want that to occur? Like, I totally get that tomorrow company would be all like, let's just subjugate everyone else, but it'd be weird to be all like, hey, you know those practices we've been using to subjugate people? Let's apply them to our own cities, and that seems. But yeah, I suppose if you are outside the law, then you don't care. You're fine.
Yeah, and I think there is kind of some historical precedent for this of using things learned colonially and applying it to domestic policing. Like, I think there is kind of, it comes home. You know, what your enforce, or what your colonial enforcers do abroad, those skills get retransferred back.
Sure.
In real life.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Well, any pros to, like, so, like, I see privatized police as being just a universal bad.
Sure.
Is there any pros at all to this, both in setting and IRL? Like, what would advocates of privatized policing say is a pro for this? Are there advocates of privatized policing?
I'm sure there are. I mean, the reduced costs to the state is probably the main thing. You know, you want to reduce spending, and therefore you can reduce taxes. I think would probably be the number one. You want the state to do as little as possible would be the argument. Okay. And if someone else can, if the private sector can provide it more efficiently, and as they say here, that's one of the things outlined here, a few paragraphs in, is that they could offer greater pay. They could pay more to the people doing the work, and it would be cheaper for the government. They can offer greater pay because of kind of economies and scale and stuff.
Sure.
They have a larger organization over a larger area, and they can leverage kind of efficiency out of that. I think those would be the main things. In terms of actual outcomes, I'm not sure there are any.
Okay, and
I mean, there could potentially be things that, you know, you can access resources that would be not affordable for public bodies, but I mean, realistically, it's always going to. Decisions are going to weight shareholders more than they're going to weight the effective carrying out of the job.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Do you foresee? Sorry, we kind of have gotten into my points here.
No, it's okay.
Do you foresee this taking hold? Because I mean, the writer asks the person to, like, consider it and things like that. Do you think the recipient of the letter will take it on consideration and then back it, or do you think it's more complex than that?
It is complex. There's as she points out, the military commission might object, because there's a blurring in what's being proposed here. There's a blurring of what is security and what is military. Like, if you're going after a smuggler, in these terms, that's actually just a rival, a business rival.
Yeah.
And, you know, at what point does that stop being enforcing of your rights, and what does it become a military violent action?
But again, but she's writing to another capitalist member of the Tamar company, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so surely they'd just be all like, well, who cares? Like, as long as it makes better book for me, I don't care if it's a blurring of military and police.
Sure, but the issue isn't a moral one. The issue is that this is a problem that may harm the business.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh,
yeah, it's not like, oh no, we can't cross this line, because that line is sacrosanct. The issue is, if we cross this line, that is a difficult parameter to control. We don't know how the other companies will react. We can't necessarily see how that will affect the business.
Right, yeah, and the Tamar company might think that they could use this as a tool to wield profit and power, but then just as easily they could have their profits and power diminished by this tool that they've set up.
Yeah, sure.
That makes sense.
To be fair, I'm sure there are members who would view the thing as a moral issue, like among the military commission, they would see that it is not part of their job and it is not part of the function of the company forces. But for the two people involved in this letter, it's not a moral issue.
Seeing as we're already sort of talking about politics, can I bring up a politics thing relating to policing in the real world?
You can, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm sorry. Let's all try and keep it civil. Chat, I'm looking at you. No, you're great, chat. Don't worry. You know what blew my mind? It blew my mind. I only learned this I'd say maybe a couple months ago. Apparently, in the US, police are not their mandate is not to protect the citizenry. Their mandate is to enforce laws, which seems like the same thing, but it's radically different. And I learned that, and I was like, that's insane. So a police officer could rock up at a situation, and someone is being harmed, for example, they can just go, it's not my business. And they'd be legally entitled to just not intervene or whatever, because their mandate is not to protect citizens. Their mandate is to enforce laws. And then I thought to myself, is that the case here? So I had a quick go at our constitution, Jesus Christ, at our constitution, and it's explicitly written in our constitution that they're there to protect the peace and the citizenry. And it's so crazy that one little bit of legalese can radically change how an institution functions. And it breaks my brain. Radiolab, if I can find it, I'll link it in the show notes. Radiolab have a great episode on this, and you can hear the presenters in this episode go through the thought process of wait, what? They're not here to protect us, but I thought they were. And apparently it only kind of works if we leave aside the idea of institutionalized racism just for a second. It's an important one, but just leave it aside
for the purposes just of making this point.
Exactly. The only way the Radiolab asserts that the US police system works. That's problematic. The word works there, but again, go with me. Is because operates is because there's a sort of innate want of people to protect each other. Because there's no legal mandate for them to protect the citizens, but a lot of officers and a lot of police people will be no, it's my job to protect my community, which is a thing that they've just kind of decided is good to do, but it's not legally mandated. But again, now we bring back the institutionalized racism, and that scuppers the whole thing. But it's just kind of nuts that the protection of citizenry is left up to the whims of the individual in the United States policing system, apparently, according to Radiolab. And that blew my mind. I can't believe that. That's just so insane. That's just what I just wanted to bring that up.
I wouldn't say that in practice the Irish police do protect the people over enforcing the law, to be honest.
No.
I wouldn't say that's how it actually works here.
There's for sure. There's a difference.
But I mean, you're pointing out that there is a function, a coded difference. There is a legislative or whatever difference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I mean, so at least in Ireland and other countries that have this legislative difference to respect to the US, you could see a path to bringing officers to justice by pointing the Constitution at them and be your job is to protect us, and you didn't in this instance. Whereas that path, I feel doesn't exist in the States, because you wave the Constitution at them and they can easily say, yeah, we were upholding the law. We didn't protect you, but we were upholding the law. Because there's a coded difference there that can lead to, in practice, very different outcomes to the same situations. But again, obviously, like you point out, people and institutions are flawed and corrupted, and what ostensibly people are meant to do, they often don't do. But I still think it's an interesting coded difference in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyhow, that was my little politics corner with Edgar. I'm sorry if people are really annoyed at me.
Did you know? I've got something semi-related.
Okay, more politics.
Did you know in the United Kingdom it's legal for the police to break the law?
It is legal for the police to break the law.
Yep, the police can break the law.
Is there some sort of addendum on that? As in,
so there's an act. It's effective as of March of this year. It's called the Covert Human Intelligence Sources Act.
The COVID.
Covert.
Okay.
And the premise of it is that police can be protected from prosecution for criminal acts that if it's undertaken to protect intelligence or to protect an investigation, and if it's deemed necessary for an investigation.
No.
So I mean, no. there are nominal safeguards there, but a door has been opened that they could break the law and not suffer consequences for it, which is obviously the kind of thing that happens anyway. And it's extended not just to the police, but also to any of the intelligence agencies. It makes sense. They were obviously, that is what intelligence agencies do anyway. Also the crime agency, the serious fraud office, all these law enforcement things, the environmental agency, the financial conduct authority, the food standards agency, and the gambling commission.
So the gambling commission can break the law.
So someone working for the gambling commission can break the law it can be deemed necessary for an investigation, and they can get away with it, and there can be like no charges for it.
Wow, is this thing being met with great opposition in England, or is it just like, is it going through?
Oh no! This is in effect.
Oh, it's in effect. Jesus Christ.
This came into effect in March.
Oh, that's so draconian. I don't like that at all.
Yep.
Wow. That's Good God. Oh, that's horrific. That is horrific. But again, I suppose, like you say, these things happen anyways. Not to say that it's justified in bringing this law, but I suppose it's good to remind oneself that, like, in a country like Ireland, for example, who doesn't have such a law, it's not like those things don't happen.
Yeah, sure. It's just scary that it is now protected by legislation.
Exactly. It's coded. It's hard coded. You can wave that bit of paper, and that can lead to some bad things happening. That's insane. Do you know what's another insane thing about the UK?
Do tell.
While we're talking, their constitution is unwritten. That's insane. Yeah. That's nuts. Like, that's just nuts.
I find that mad.
I think that's the most crazy thing ever. Like, how like, they have a constitution. It just, no one wrote it down, and it's like,
great world building.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
It is great world building. Give them that.
It's just nuts. Like, it's absolutely nuts. Anyhow, Tamara Company, back to this. Politics corner. Anything else that you have? Sorry, because I totally interrupted your train of thought there with my questions. Okay. Is there anything else you were going to add on your train of thought?
An organic conversation. Mm-hmm. I was kind of inspired by this, actually, by playing Red Dead Redemption 2 yesterday. Because I was thinking, like, because there's like bounty hunting stuff in that, and I was thinking how that works, and the way that they dealt with criminals there was some guy could just go and catch them and bring them back, and with the way Cairn is, or this region of Cairn is, there are large areas that are don't have a lot of infrastructure, and there's large empty areas between the big cities. So I figured, that's probably something that they have there, and that's what grew out of it. Those are the free agents and the independent agents that are referred to in the letter is people who do stuff like that.
That was another one of my points. Good God, you've gone through all of my points.
Brilliant.
That is insane. All I've left on my points are like clarifications and definitions. That's mental. That never happens.
Oh, do you want to ask me some of those?
Just for people who may be new to the show, do you want to just give a definition here of, like, Trans Ollian Office, who they are, what they do, where have they appeared?
Sure. So the Tamar Company is a kind of a large commercial and somewhat colonial trading company in the manner of the Hudson's Bay Company or the East India, etc. And it is divided into offices that have responsibility over different geographic areas. And the Trans-Olyan office is Trans-Olyan is a province to the east of the kind of the home of the Abeski people. The Abeski people is the culture that these companies grew out of, or the ethnicity. So the Trans-Olyan, is to the east. The domestic provinces would be covered by the Western, Eastern, and Southern office. That's kind of what they're talking about when they say the domestic lands, the kind of the homelands of the Abeski ethnicity.
And then the mining unrest threatened last season has largely been quelled. Recap on the mining unrest. If that's something we covered.
That isn't something we've covered before, but just in Trans-Olyan there was kind of labor agitation recently, and these people, obviously they discussed it. Eritha and Lilani discussed it, and Lilani gave advice on how to disrupt the agitators' networks, and prevent that unrest from becoming too disruptive to trade.
A bunch of radical Abeskis snuck into the Bitcoin mining warehouse and broke a heap of GPUs.
Something like that.
Something like that. Less of a clarification. Well, I suppose it's still a clarification. Seasons. The word you use for seasons here. Not the word you use for seasons. Sorry, you use the word seasons. Define. Is a season like a year? Is a season like a climactic thing, or is it like a sort of like a social thing, a la Bridgerton?
It can be used both ways. I think like return by the end of the season is kind of more of a social one, but like it means kind of period of time. It can be applied in a few different ways.
Sure. Okay. Cool. And that is hold on. And then do you have any sort of quick bio on Eritha Tsiagarin?
Not yet, no, but I feel like I'm going to do more with them.
Okay, cool. And that is all my points.
Cool.
The big enemy is capitalism. I loved the last show. I think you were all like, you said something to the effect of like, I had intended on having like antagonists or something, but it turned out that capitalism was the antagonist. And I thought
monsters, because it's planetary romance, so I intended to have like monsters in it and just...
it turns out the monster is capitalism. That's what
corporate avarice is the real monster.
That was a great little soundbite. It was wonderful. Yeah, cool, man. Well played, really well played. I enjoyed, and I'm envious of your ability to both read and write so competently.
Thank you.
Right, Vowel Harmony.
Let's do it.
So I just released a video yesterday, as of the time of recording, called Vowel Harmony, and I have points and views, but as always, Bill, have you watched it? What are your points and views?
I have watched it. I have taken a few notes. What did I say here? So, you said that the four kinds of harmony are backness, roundness, height, and tongue root.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever get tone or pitch harmony in tonal languages?
Look at you anticipating the points I'm going to make. Well,
we are so in sync today.
We are on fire. Our cycles have aligned. So you don't get, as far as I'm aware from what I've read, you don't get tone harmony. Mainly because I suspect, this is my speculation here, linguists point out if I'm wrong, tone is used, when tone emerges, it's used to differentiate meaning. So having harmony occur would you'd lose meaning, you know?
Yeah. Tone is a much more semantic element.
Sure, yeah.
Gotcha.
So you don't get that. What was the other one you said? Pitch harmony, but that's the same sort of jazz.
Yeah.
You also don't get one that I didn't bring up because I was kind of aiming at sort of like, here are the big ones. Like, I don't want to go into the nuance. You don't really get length harmony is another one. That's not really a thing. And I can say that with confidence because that's explicitly stated in one of the sources that's linked in the document in the description of the video. And they just outright say length harmony is not attested in natural languages. Yeah, you do get on the just as a follow-on point, you do get a thing called rhotic harmony, which is really rare and possibly, I'm unsure, but possibly currently extinct, as in like it recently died out. I think like as of like really recently, like as of like 2014, something like that. But the idea being that like if there's a rhotic sound in a root, and a rhotic sound is like the way you'd say English people say like, or not, maybe not English people, but the way you'd say like car when you don't have a sound at the end, like ka or whatever. It's like
Right.
it's like a vowel with like a flavoring of an or sound, but not a proper or sound. If such a sound appears in a root, then the suffixes also must be rhotic vowels. But that's immensely rare. It was pointed out by a number of commenters who were kind of like, you forgot rhotic harmony. And I was like, I definitely didn't forget it. I just didn't want to bring it up because it is so rare. And the other one that's commonly brought up in this discussion, which I didn't, is nasal harmony. And that's where if you have a nasal sound, either a nasal vowel or a nasal consonant in a root, most often suffixes and prefixes will also agree in nasality. Didn't bring that one up because, to my mind, that's an example of vowel consonant harmony and not vowel harmony.
Yeah.
So it's beyond the remit of the video.
That kind of makes sense. Although there is a little bit of kind of what seems like it would lean towards vowel consonant harmony, where you talk at the end about back consonants preferring back vowels.
Yeah, but that's not really a harmony thing. That's like a sound change thing.
Okay.
Which we get into the grey area real quick, which we'll talk about in a second. Where like when is a thing a harmony and when is a thing not a harmony? I think that's just a sound change sort of thing. But it's more that in a nasal harmony system, like both a vowel or a consonant can be a trigger of harmony, whereas with the example in the video of the back consonants, that's just a sound change conditioned by their existence. They don't trigger harmony across the entire word.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So
because that's more to do with evolution than it is to do with
yes.
Gotcha.
All right, point one. What's your second point?
Dominant recessive harmony. So that means that harmony isn't applied to a word at all unless a certain feature is in the word.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Cool. Point 3. If or a tree.
So I'm pretty sure I have this right, but you say something about stress.
Yes.
Does that mean like sonic emphasis? I assume it means sonic emphasis, not like semantic emphasis.
Yeah, no, like as in where stress falls, like as in like phonologically stressed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, just checking. Because it did occur to me that I guess this would be very difficult to do unless it's like a highly kind of agglutinative language, or you don't use word domain or something like that. But it could be interesting if the bit that you wanted to emphasize in the semantic emphasis you wanted in the utterance was the one that triggered harmony. That could be kind of interesting.
Like if you had a clausal thing, like in Somali, I point out where the whole clause needs to be in harmony. The word that is stressed, like as in you went to the shop triggers the harmony for the whole clause, like that sort of thing.
Exactly that kind of thing. Yeah,
that would be absolutely bonkers.
And just because Hungarian came up earlier in the video, and Hungarian has a really interesting thing about the semantic emphasis, doesn't it? Like what you want to emphasize in the meaning of the sentence.
Does it? Literally all I know about Hungarian is its vowel harmony. I know nothing beyond that.
Yeah, let me look this up real quick. So, word order is not determined by syntactic roles, but rather by pragmatic factors, and emphasis is placed on the word or phrase immediately before the finite verb.
Yeah, so it's like I'm assuming then it's like a topic focus type jazz. The thing you want to draw attention to, you shove it to a prominent position.
Yes, yes. Hungarian is a topic prominent language.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of because Hungarian was mentioned. That kind of made me think about the emphasis thing.
It was really sorry. Just on Hungarian, real quick. I spoke to a mutual friend of ours in research for this video.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. Our Hungarian singer friend. And because with the neutral vowel bit, when I talked about Hungarian, there was people on the Patreon Discord reached out to some Hungarians and they reported back that my section on the neutral vowels was just wrong. It just didn't happen, which directly conflicted with the source material I was reading. And so I was like, oh, well, let me reach out to another native speaker and see what they say. And so I Skyped with this person, and it's really fun to interrogate native speakers about how they talk. Like it's so interesting getting people to talk about how they talk, because this person has never, and he admitted this and opened up straight away about it, like he's never thought linguistically about Hungarian. Like it's just a thing he speaks, and it's really cool to present people with examples and be like, what are your thoughts about this? And some of the immediate reactions to some words you throw at people you can draw out very, very interesting ideas and perceptions. It's just really fun. Because it was the particular example I'm thinking of is I put the hybrid vowel bit to him, the fotel neck and fotel nak thing that's in the video, and you could see a real conflict in him. He was like, they both kind of work, but I prefer one and I don't know why. And it was just really, really interesting to hear that. I felt like a real linguistic investigator. It was really fun. Massive thanks though to our mutual Hungarian friend who's not listening to the show at all, but just in the off chance he is. Without you, that part would have not existed. I would have cut it. But you kind of confirmed to me that this is a thing that does happen, but there is considerable variation among speakers. So thank you. Direct contribution to the video. Right, if we're four.
Well, this has kind of actually just occurred to me now. We can consider it number 4. Do you ever have a situation where a word is split up in the structure? So what I'm thinking of directly is German and separable verbs. So that
Ich breche etwas abbrechen. Ich breche etwas ab.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that you've got app is still part of what do you say? Abbrechen, was that the verb you used?
Abbrechen, yeah.
Was bedeutet abbrechen?
To break off, to break something off.
Right. So do you ever have a situation where you would have the harmony for the brechen and the app, like the different particles that are split up, but not the bit that's in between?
That is very interesting. I am going to say no.
Okay.
But that didn't come up at all. So I'm going to say no because it didn't come up. But that's very, very interesting. Yeah.
In that situation, is app a word or is it a clitic or what does it count as?
Oh, stop. I'm terrible at this. I don't know. I don't know. It's a thing. It's a secondary verb maybe. I'm
going to text the linguist real quick and ask them.
Wait, hang on. You know linguists IRL?
Yeah.
Oh man, here, can I get that contact information off you? I'm constantly looking to talk to linguists and to confirm something.
I guess.
I didn't realize at all. That's if please ask this person if they'd be open to perhaps giving me their number and for me to perhaps on a bi-monthly basis text them questions.
I know a few.
Man, do you think this would have been important information to give me at some stage?
I could have just assumed that it had come up at some stage.
It totally didn't. That's great. Oh dear. Well, that's actually really good to know, because sometimes I want to go on to or/linguistics and ask questions, but I always feel really bad because it's like I'm asking conlang questions on a linguistics forum, and there's always times where I'm kind of like, I just wish I had a linguist friend who I can come to as a friend and be like, hey buddy, what do you think of this, without annoying linguists at large. Jesus man, if I could leverage some of your friendships there, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure if I thought about abbrechen a bit, I'd be able to come up with something. But in general, I'm terrible at remembering what the hell bits are called. Bits of words are called.
Fair enough.
If we're a kuig, if we're a fünf.
What have we got down here? I like the chapter formats that you've got going on in the videos. I know that's not like new to this video, but it's relatively recent, and I enjoy it.
It is largely, that has become solidified as a consequence of YouTube allowing chapters in their timelines, and that is so good for educational content. Like, finally people can like skip to the bit precisely that they want. So yeah, I've doubled down heavy on the chapters thing, and also behind the scenes, it's way easier to write if you divide things up into chapters. There's less transitions to write, and it's great.
You know me, I like formal structures in my media, Edgar.
You do.
I do. I like the time to be divided in comprehensible ways.
Bill sonata form all the time, McGrath.
Not just sonata form. What else have we got down here? Evolution, by definition, it's original. I can't remember what that was about. I think it was when you were developing your oh yes, it was when you were developing your harmony system, and you said by definition it won't, or you said it won't be super original, but it was original because you were making a new one. It was original.
Yeah, but it's like, it's not like I've come down from Mount Sinai or whatever with like God-given knowledge or whatever. It's just like I've repurposed a lot of what is out there into something that I thought made more sense.
I guess.
Because the thing on this, if I may elaborate a little bit more, vowel harmony always frustrated me because in the linguistic literature, that which I've been exposed to, very little is written about where vowel harmony comes from. And that's just infuriating if you want to ask the question of how do I evolve it. And then also in the conlanging sphere, I don't mean to throw shade here, so this is not me being snarky, chat. Looking at you. No, in the conlanging sphere, I always found it very unsatisfactory what was said about vowel harmony, because, you know, the extent of how to implement it was very often summarized by stuff like, oh, vowel harmony is a process of assimilation, so just go ahead and do that. And you're like, that's not really informative, you know? Like, that makes sense, like it is a process of assimilation, but just going like, this is what it is, so just go do that, is really unsatisfactory to me. So I really want to try and build a framework to take someone from I have no knowledge of vowel harmony and give them a step-by-step process to implement a basic harmony system. So that's why I think it's unoriginal, because all I'm doing is kind of laying out a step-by-step process, but not like reinventing the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You said something about umlauts. What did you mean by umlaut here? Because it seemed like it was a different meaning than the diacritic.
Yeah, sure. So umlaut is specifically the thing I talked about in the video is called a Germanic umlaut. And that is definitionally where a high vowel, possibly also a palatal approximant, I can't remember specifically in the case of Germanic umlaut, but nonetheless, definitely a high vowel causes vowels in the previous syllable to front and or raise. That's why in German, hence why it's called a Germanic umlaut, you have like singular Bruder, brother, but plural Brüder. Because back in the day, there would have been something there, some high vowel there, that triggered U to go to Ü, and then that trigger was lost. And that's why you have Bruder versus Brüder. And, and I think that's why we have foot versus feet as well, I think.
Okay.
Loads of those forms are done via umlaut. And again, umlaut is where something in a rightward syllable causes something in a more leftward syllable to front and or raise.
Gotcha.
And I guess it's related to the diacritic because, at least as far as I'm aware, in German, those diacritics mark kind of where those changes have occurred. Again,
Sure.
the example being Bruder and Brüder.
That makes sense.
I think a better term for it though is what term I think that we should use more of is eye mutation, because then you don't get confused with the diacritic mark.
Yeah. I think that is all of my points.
Wow. Okay, cool. Let me bait through my points here. So a couple of things that came up in comments. These will all be put into a formal follow-up video, but while we're here, people asked about bidirectionality. Can harmony spread in both directions? Yes, it can spread in both directions. If you have prefixes and suffixes in a language, they can all be in harmony. This is another case why I recommend root control, because you have a root that's all in harmony, and then it just spreads all over the place, and it's grand. People also asked, like, you talked a lot about the umlaut thing, but how else can you create harmony? And it's literally a case of you just find sound changes that enforce harmony. So if you need to front stuff, you need to go look for fronting sound changes. If you need to back stuff, you need to go look for backing sound changes. Plus ATR, minus ATR, round, unround, high, low, etc. I recommend checking out the Index Diachronica, which has a big old list of sound changes, and I'll also leave a link to a book that you can purchase that goes through various sound changes you can do, and you just want to target ones that enforce the harmony. Is my answer to that. Other people pointed out that, hey, your uvular, pharyngeal, glottal, those back consonants, they back vowels. So then do I take it that the front consonants, like your bilabials, do they front vowels? And the answer to that is no. Because the front consonants, at least the very front consonants, don't do anything with the tongue. Like,
Yeah.
B is just lips. If you want to use consonants to front things, the palatal approximant is great. Y. Because y functions a lot like E, and you can use that to front stuff. So that's where you're going to get that.
Maybe I could see maybe like, was it linguadental consonants possibly leading to front vowels?
I mean, it logically makes sense to me, but I have never seen that. They probably exist. I mean, look, languages are crazy. Like, it's going to be somewhere. It nearly always is somewhere. But also, labiodental consonants are, like, extremely rare. They don't crop up very often, at least not, like, phonemically. Like, you know, we do it, you and I, Bill, but, like, you know, we are not the norm here. Or probably me more than you, Bill, because you have a slightly different accent. You don't tend to these, that, and these as much as I do.
No.
But you do tend to where, which, and when more than I do.
There is a H in the word, god damn it.
Yeah, but by that rationale, I should be saying climb.
I'm not going to say English is consistent, but there is a H in that word.
Weather.
Weather.
Yeah, it's great. It's clearly weather, but that's okay, Bill.
It's not.
Look,
No.
It's totally okay that you speak Hiberno English wrong. That's okay, Bill. I won't hold it against you.
I speak Hiberno English beautifully.
Oh dear. You do. I'm not, just for the record, joke, folks, not being prescriptive here. Both Bill and I are entirely correct. Just one of us is more correct. And then my final point was to talk about nasal harmony and rhotic harmony, but which you've already covered in your first point. And the very, very last point is a meta point. This is going to sound like a sob story, but I just, you know, you're my mate, and we'll just talk through it. I am disappointed by this video.
Really?
Yeah, I am disappointed. And again, this is going to sound a bit needy, and I don't mean it like this. I am disappointed in the reaction to the video, because to my mind, I think this is the best video I've ever made, because very often my videos, they kind of take established knowledge and just present it again in a way that I hopefully think is clear. But it's kind of rare when I like create a system of doing a thing. And in this case, like I created a very simple system that literally solved the problem that Past Edgar was having. Like I put something, I think, new into the world, or newish into the world, and I was real stoked about it. It's kind of like, it's the best thing I've ever made. Like, I think people are going to really like this and really think it's useful and all this. And then the video landed, and it kind of has received like a meh sort of response to it. Like the metrics are kind of like, it's okay, it's not terrible, it's not great, it's just a very run-of-the-mill performance, which kind of it kind of broke my heart a little bit this morning when I logged on and checked analytics, and I was like, crap, I so thought that this would kind of like, you know, really hit home, but clearly I've just like misjudged it something serious. So this month is weird, because I think it's the best thing I've done, certainly in a long time, possibly ever, but there seems to be a disconnect with what I think is needed in this vowel harmony space and what others do as well. So I've been a little bit down this morning because of that. There was a high.
I'm sorry, man.
No, that's okay. But sure, this comes with territory. You can't always make stuff that's good. And just because I think a thing is good doesn't mean that others will too. And that's just part of, like, that's just life. You need to just, you know, roll with it. Like, and I mean, like, of all the complaints to have, you know, like, I don't think enough people watched my video is a minimal complaint in life, and that's why I'm conscious about coming across as being like needy, or as in like, you know, oh, please feel sorry for Edgar here. Like, I don't think that's the case at all. It's just me talking about the sort of meta behind the scenes sort of feelings towards what we do, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a weird one, very strange one, and I'm sure in another day or two I'll be fine and stuff. But I've never had the sort of like incredible excitement and then like a deep low after publishing.
I think it's good for YouTubers to be able to express stuff like that, and just be kind of regular and chill about it, and not have it seen as being needy or entitled or complaining or whatever. You know, I like seeing that honesty in reaction to their work. Like, do you watch 12 Ton at all?
I do, yes.
Yeah. So Corey does a lot of that. Corey, well, not a lot, but it's I've seen Corey talk about it and refer to it, and they say, you know, stuff about their metrics or stuff about the reaction to their videos and that, and it's never come across to me as being needy or entitled or anything. But, you know, I think it's kind of probably a healthy thing to be able to express, and I think audiences should be able to receive it healthily as well, and not see it as a slight or not see it as a complaint.
Yeah, because definitely, because if you don't talk about those things, or you just keep kind of like negative feelings bottled up, which is no good. I will say though, like, you know, there is a good many YouTubers I've stumbled across who whose metrics take a dip, or their performance isn't doing what they think it should be doing, who kind of do cross the line into sort of like view begging. Which I think is just, I just think that's really terrible, because that creates an environment where people are not as open to hearing people talk about their feelings with regards to their work. You know, we're kind of like, oh, you're just view begging, like all these other people. Whereas that's not always the case. Like the one thing I hate is where like it's explicitly said in videos where it's like, you know, if this video does really well, I'll like continue making this stuff. It's kind of like you hold your content ransom.
Yeah.
I hate that. It's just like, I don't know, maybe I'm naive and stuff, but I kind of feel like, you know, YouTubers should make content because they really like the thing they want to talk about. And then if no one watches it, like, you know, that's not great in terms of making a living, but like, who cares? Because the driving force should be just make stuff you want to be out there. But the idea of kind of like, I don't know, like monetizing it that way in a sort of ransomware sort of thing is, I really don't like it. I really don't like that sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And there is definitely, what I'm saying doesn't preclude the fact that complaining and being toxic about that kind of thing does exist, because it definitely does.
Yeah, exactly. And there are content creators who are entitled or feel entitled to like a gajillion views every time they drop a video, which is obviously, I think, nonsense. But yeah, sometimes things don't work out as you think they will, And that's cool. And it's also cool to be able to sit around with your best friend, Bill McGrath, and just say, it didn't work, Bill, and it makes me a little bit sad. And that's fine. And I'm sure at some stage, I'll make another video that I think is just a video that is like quite prosaic and run of the mill, and it just like it explodes, and it's like, why did that happen? You just don't know. It's a complicated thing. And let me use this opportunity again to thank patrons, because this is the sort of thing where direct support is so helpful, because like if I were reliant on the advertising revenue to make a living here, like this sort of thing would literally send me into a bit of a depression, because I'd be like, my job is threatened, and if the next video also doesn't do well, like that's really bad for the channel and ad revenue, and I'll have to quit and all this sort of jazz. Having long-term supporters who just are like, yeah, if this video gets no views, doesn't matter, you're still going to get my $1 or $2 a month, and you just make stuff that you think needs to be made. Like that level of security, man, it's so good, and it's the only reason I'm not completely miserable right now, which is it's just so thank you so much to the patrons in particular, and like people who buy merch or anything that is like a direct contribution to me and us. It just, that stability is just a godsend in terms of mental health. It's just crazy. So that's that. Green room,
let's do it.
I have two quick PSAs, and then I want to complain about stuff to Bill here, folks. The quick PSA is Artifexian Book Club Corner, because of neglect on my part, is being shoved to next month. We'll read Axiom's End, or we'll review Axiom's End next month. I've just been in the quagmire of linguistic literature over the past while, and just had no real interest in reading Axiom's End, given that. So, but next month we'll review it. The other PSA is just to try and keep the show a little bit shorter, because I'm kind of preferring these hour and a half-ish shows. We received an entry into Bank of Artifexia via Gideon. Gideon, your letter has been received with great love, and you will be on the show next month, if that's okay with you. Thank you for your Ugandan shillings. We'll go through it properly next month. PSA is done. Cool. So the things I want to talk about real quick is I want to complain / muse about the Eurovision and The Last Kingdom. You up for that, Bill?
I didn't watch the Eurovision, and I haven't watched The Last Kingdom, but let's do it, I guess.
I think these are general points. You don't need to have watched these things, but they're just general things. Let's start with The Last Kingdom, because it's the one that's most directly related to world building and conlang. The Eurovision one is just not related to world building conlang whatsoever. Just me talking to my friend, folks. Last Kingdom, right? So this is a show, we talked about it previously earlier in the episode. It's a show set in like Saxon Dane England in, I think, about the 800s AD. I think it's 800s. And
I think it's because I was talking to someone recently who had watched it recently, and it's set like a little bit after the Great Dane Army, so kind of late 800s.
Yeah, sure. And it's really
the Great Heathen Army, rather.
The Great Heathen Army. It is a really good show. I really enjoy it. I think it's really fun. But the thing that irks me, and I'd like to get your opinion on this, Bill, is that I've titled it in the show notes here, Rage Against Anachronistic RP. Everyone in the show who's not a heathen, a Dane, speaks in RP, and like usually I'm okay with that in most contexts, but like this is so far back in the past that it just completely sucks me out of it to have like, the King of Wessex, the Saxon King of Wessex, speaking the Queen's English. It's so weird, and it's really jarring. So I began thinking about like, couldn't they, because like the world seems to have become okay with having conlangs on shows. Like The Witcher, David J. Peterson is everywhere. The Witcher has conlangs. Obviously, Game of Thrones has a number of conlangs. Lord of the Rings. What's
The Expanse?
That's the one, The Expanse. The proliferation of conlangs is just everywhere, and audience seem okay with this, listening to like quote unquote nonsense words with subtitles. That seems to be a thing that works. In this case, though, I suspect if you were to just get someone to kind of elaborate on Old English or whatever the English would have been spoken back in the day and just put subtitles everywhere, I think that would probably not work in this case, because I think a lay audience would look at it and be all like, but this is set in England. Why are there subtitles? Why are they talking like this? There might be a bit of dissonance there, because I'm not sure how aware a regular person is, a non-linguistics nerd, about how radically English has changed over the centuries. And that could be jarring. But so I began thinking about like maybe they could get some conlanger on board to kind of create like an old, like a Saxon dialect. Like if you took a Saxon person with the phonological inventory they are used to using and place them in the modern world and answer the question, how might they pronounce modern English? So keep all the grammar of modern English intact and everything, but just use the phonological inventory of Old English speakers. How would that work? And I'm conflicted as to whether or not this would actually work for the show. What are your thoughts, Bill?
I mean, it has to communicate other things than just the dialect has to communicate other things than just the words themselves. It communicates what we are supposed to assume about class and what we are supposed to assume about kind of social roles like that. So I don't like the anachronistic RP and the kind of it's a really common thing. Everyone in the past had English accents. Everyone in the future has American accents.
Sure.
It is an annoying thing, but it's a difficult one to solve. It's a thorny problem to solve. I mean, I don't think there's any like we have conlangs in Game of Thrones and in The Expanse and that, but we don't. I can't think of any property that has long periods of subtitled dialogue in a conlang.
Yeah. But that's why I think that not going down the just translate everything into Old English as best as you can route is a good idea. Go into dialect idea. Like make them be modern speakers, but make them be speakers of modern English, but just with the twang of a Saxon, which I think should be doable. Because I mean, that's what's occurring with the Danish characters, because like the lead character is a German native speaker as far as I'm aware, and like he obviously speaks English with a German twang, and that kind of like conveys the idea of he is like not from England, he is other. So I totally think you could put on the Old English vowels everywhere and it would work. Now, I floated this idea on the Discord, and I think the main pushback I got, and I think it's a valid one, is that regular audiences would listen to it and laugh at the sounds. Like they would think that people sound stupid and silly. Because I think the U sound, the German U umlaut, is present in the language that would have been spoken at that time. I'm sorry, folks, I don't actually know the name of what brand of English was spoken then. But I think if you were to start putting U's everywhere, it'll kind of sound a bit like the Swedish chef is speaking. And then, to have like your man Albert, or what's his name? Albert? The king, I can't remember his name. Alfred, the king of Wessex, speak like the Swedish chef would probably make a lay audience giggle and think the show was a load of nonsense. Whereas, from a linguistics nerd, I think it would be dope, and I would love to see that. But it just probably wouldn't track very well with the general audiences, which is a shame. Because I think that leads me to believe there's no solution here. Like you kind of just have to continue with the trope of everyone in the past speaks RP, and that's it. Or everyone who's a king and noble person in the past speaks RP, and the rest of them sound like they're from Cornwall.
Yeah, I mean, so he was based in Winchester. What's the actual accent like of Winchester? Maybe just use the contemporary regular accents. Maybe that is RP. I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting. Winchester. Yeah, that's interesting. That's like, it's southern, but it's close. It's like in the middle. It's bang in the middle. I don't know.
Bang in the middle of what?
Bang in the middle of like the bottom part of England, according to Wikipedia.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, not bang in the middle of the entirety of
what?
It's not like up by Manchester. Like, that's not the case, but it's bang in the middle of the XY axis, or the X axis, should I say? I don't actually know what sort of accent spoken there. But again, that plays into the problems of like the tropes we associate with noble people. Like, the Birmingham accent. If a king spoke in the Birmingham accent, people would be all like, "That's daft," which is terrible. But like, I think that's what people would think. So RP is just around, and it annoys me. It annoys me because it's set so far in the past. Like, I can swallow a bunch of RP in the 1600s. I can swallow that, but like, I can't swallow it when it's 800 AD. Like, I can't. It just drives me nuts. It's so far back in the past. It's crazy. And then like, also like with all they, like I mentioned earlier in the show, they put on the Old English on screen. They flash up the Old English names for places, and like they have like the old letters, like the th sound. I don't know what that letter is called, but like those are present. So you just like the orthography signals.
Oh, the thorn.
The thorn. That's it. The orthography signals that this is like way long ago, and then they all speak imperfect RP, and it's like, it just breaks my brain. The show's really good though. Everyone should go check it out. Uhtred of Bebbanburg is a wonderful Mary Sue.
I have been meaning to watch it because I love me some Vikings.
I think you'd really enjoy it, Bill. I think you would. I think it's a really good show, and it does a good job of balancing comedy with seriousness, and I think it's just well crafted. So that's that. That's Rage Against the Anachronistic RP. Let's talk about Eurovision and me raging against the Pastiche.
Okay.
So I was watching Eurovision yesterday, and I thought the quality of the show was in general a lot better than it usually is. I thought there was a few like real banging tunes and some great comedy acts, and I enjoyed it. But Portugal, right? I'll link in the show notes to the song. Portugal's entry really rubbed me up the wrong way, and I want to complain about it. I really dislike Eurovision's propensity to just like create pastiches of established genres. Like, nearly every year you have like, oh, this is the swing song, and it's just like a workman like reproduction of like generic swing, or like this is the rock song, and it's like a workman like reproduction of like generic rock. And I hate that because like part of me wants to feel the culture of all these cool places in their music, and it's just this sort of ubiquity of the hegemony of American culture has seeped its way into this, and has been for a long time, and it drives me up the wall. And like, I'm not saying that like I want Portugal to come out, dress in folk clothing, and sing a bunch of folk Portuguese music. Like, I'm not saying that at all. But like, what I am saying is, like, I would love if you're going to do like, if Portugal does I don't even know how to describe the type of song they had, like a sort of Guns N' Roses power rock ballad sort of thing.
Right.
If you're going to do that, do it with a Portuguese twist. And I think a really good example here is inner city Irish hip hop is a really good example, I think, of how this is done really well. Because like, hip hop is obviously not an Irish invention. We're obviously taking an established genre and just like, taking it for ourselves here. But like the performers of inner city Irish hip hop, they bring a unique Irish perspective to that genre and create something new. Do
you mean like Gemma Dunleavy kind of stuff?
I honestly can't name a single person. I just have this general feeling of what it's basically hip hop with a thick Dublin accent. That sort of that sort of vibe. And like, they talk about Irish issues in their music. They don't perform with an American accent. They perform in their native sort of dialect. They use Hiberno-Irish, like they bring Irishness to this genre and create a new thing. And it just in the Eurovision, like you just like again the Portuguese example. If people go to show notes and click on it, like there is nothing Portuguese about that. And like do your Guns N' Roses rock ballad, but like bring something of Portugal to this. Like I want to sit and watch the Eurovision, like, and obviously be entertained by all the glitter and the color and the sass and the voguing, like obviously all of that stuff. But also I kind of want to be taken on a whistle stops tour of the various sounds and cultures of all these countries, and you don't get that if you have people who are just kind of like, this is the nu metal entry and it's just cheap nu metal, and like this is the power ballad entry and it's just real cheap unoriginal a power ballad. It drives me nuts, like, and it's raging against the hegemony of American culture and raging against the cheap pastiche, and I just want more from it, you know.
So what you're saying is we should send Kneecap to represent Ireland in the next Eurovision.
I'm actually going to just Google this here. I'll put it in the show notes here. Kneecap, spelt like, you know, knee and cap.
Yeah, that's like just one word, Kneecap.
Kneecap. One word, Kneecap. Here we go. Oh yeah, I know these. Yeah. I mean, I would Kneecap. Show notes. Check it out. Hip hop sung. Performed in Irish. I mean, I would love that. That would be great. But I don't think you need to go that far. Like again, the example of inner city hip hop, like it's hip hop in English but with an Irish accent. Like I think that's enough to just convey a sense of like this is a thing that has arisen from our culture. Yeah, that's just
That's an interesting thing to bring up. Because. There is a couple of good Irish artists in hip hop. Do you know Denise Chila?
No.
Okay, she's from Limerick. She's really good. Really interesting lyrically. Quite kind of a diverse range of sounds on her album. And there's a lot of stuff kind of being done that I enjoy. But when I've admittedly my knowledge is fairly limited. It's not a scene I'm hugely knowledgeable on, but when I do see it done live, and in some recordings I've heard, the sound is just really similar to UK grime, and I would like to see, like in terms of beats, a more individual Irish sound be developed, that was distinct both from hip hop and grime. Yeah,
I agree, but in the context of Eurovision, having like Irish UK grime, fine. Like, you know, you got to pick your battles here. But yeah, it just irks me. And they never seem to strike. I promise I'll shut up about this in a second. But they never seem to strike a balance at all, where it's kind of like it's either just we're going to do a pastiche, or we're just going to do like horrifically cringy like techno folk. And there's never a kind of like, oh wow, what's being presented here is an actual like kind of real fusion of styles, like a real mix of cultures, like, because that's what makes it so. That's why UK grime also I think is really interesting. Like that sound is super interesting to me because it really is this like these two worlds coming together to produce a new thing. Yeah, Portugal. Oh, god damn it. I will say final point on the Eurovision, and then we can wrap up. I haven't followed the Eurovision for many years, so maybe this is a trend that's been occurring for a long time, but I'm only just becoming aware of it. There seems to be a few years ago, it seemed that like everything was just like a techno anthem on Eurovision. Like everything was just four to the floor, lots of synths. That's it. Every entry. Mm-hmm. From every country. But there appears to be more of a kind of move away from that now. Like I saw a lot of like slower songs, a lot of songs that like I was like, this is not Eurovision material. Like these are kind of like songs and not like just Eurovision stuff. Belgium was a big example here. Links in the show notes if you want to go check it out. Like that's just not what I think Eurovision is like. So I think there's a cool movement away from like, okay, we've done the banging Euro techno for a long time. Let's move away and become a little bit more nuanced about this. And I think that's a really cool development. And I think there's room for both. There's room for your big, Eastern European techno anthem, and there's also room for like an entry like Belgium. And I think that's really dope, and I encourage it, and I look forward to seeing more of it. And never lose the glitter Eurovision. It's important. So yeah, that's that.
Excellent.
Show A on show.
On Clár.
On Clár. On Pud Crealach. Pud Crealach.
On Clár Galéir. Alice Clár.
Alice Clár. That's great.
Oh man, yeah, we should use that as a title for something hybrid, Hiberno-Germanic, and call it Alice Clár.
Alice Clár. I mean, now that we've said it a couple of times, we can actually use it for the title. And also, like, literally, we're about to stop recording. So, like, the people are going to be guessing the entire way through, listening, being like, why the hell is it called Alice Clár? That's nuts. And then we're just going to cut off here. And then it's going to be a very kind of both satisfying and unsatisfying ending to the show.
So, are we not going to say Edgar out?
Oh, no, I think we actually should. It would be fun to just cut it dead, but I think we should probably. And in fact,
cut it dead, and then leave a little gap, and then we'll just both say Edgar out. So people will think, oh, it's over, and then it'll just be Edgar out.
No, I tell you what we're going to do. Sorry, no, that would be hilarious. But what we actually should do is the actual good thing to do, like the right thing to do, and thank everyone, because that is important.
Oh yeah,
like
important.
Thanking people is probably more important than a cheap joke. So let's do that, folks. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Thanks to all the patrons who help make this a possibility. And we will see you next week. Next month.
Cutting straight out and not thanking people is more formally satisfying, but thanking people in politeness is important. So I agree.
I can't believe.
Thanks everyone for listening.
I said next week, Bill. It's your...
I heard you say next week. I was being the bigger man and choosing not to mock you for it.
It's infectious. See you next year, folks. Until next time.
Edgar out.